The first thing Elias noticed was the blood. Not the color. Every species had a different shade once you'd stitched enough of them. Not the smell. Iron and antiseptic and panic all had cousins across the stars. What caught him was the way the blood moved, thick and dark and disciplined, as if it had been ordered to spill. She stumbled into the outpost's outer corridor like she'd been thrown there by the universe itself. Elias had been halfway through arguing with a malfunctioning water recycler when the door alarms chirped, 3 soft notes that meant pressure seal compromised and unidentified mass detected. The corridor lights flickered from warm white to clinical blue. The air tasted faintly of ozone, like a storm deciding whether to break. A figure leaned against the doorframe, tall and wrapped in a torn travel cloak. The hood shadowed her face, but he saw enough. A hand pressed to her side, fingers slick, trembling only once before locking into stillness. She was trying not to fall like falling was a personal insult. "Hey," Elias said, voice gentle by habit. "You're bleeding." The figure lifted her head. Under the hood, her eyes caught the light, too reflective, like polished stone, and far too calm for someone leaking out onto his floor. "I know," she said, and her voice was measured, not weak, not pleading. Like she was delivering a verdict. Elias stepped forward anyway. The outpost wasn't much, an old refueling station bolted to a dead moon's edge, running on stubbornness and patched conduit. But it had a med bay, a stocked kit, and one human medic who'd promised himself he'd never become numb. "Sit," he told her, pointing at a bench bolted into the corridor wall. For a heartbeat, she didn't move. Elias didn't flinch. He'd seen the pause before, predators deciding if you were prey, soldiers deciding if you were a threat, frightened people deciding if kindness was a trap. Finally, she sat with a controlled exhale, one gloved hand still clamped to her side. Elias knelt. "Let me see." Her fingers tightened. "No weapons," he added, holding his hands up. "Just bandages and bad jokes." A faint tilt of her head. A subtle, almost imperceptible scan of him from boots to eyes. He felt it like a cold beam passing through his ribs. "Your jokes," she said, "will not be necessary." "Fair," he said. "Bandages it is." He eased his med satchel open. Inside, sterile packs, sealing foam, coag gel, a handheld scanner that coughed if you shook it too hard. He looked up. "Permission?" Her gaze held his. "You ask," she said slowly, "as if I can say no." "You can," Elias replied, "but you'll probably faint, and I'll treat you anyway, and then you'll be mad at me when you wake up." For the first time, something flickered behind her eyes. Surprise, not that he would treat her, but that he would narrate it like a weather forecast. She unclasped her cloak with one quick motion. Elias sucked in a breath before he could stop himself. It wasn't just a wound, it was a statement. A slashed gash across her right side, deep enough that the edges had tried to knit and failed. The blood had dried in layered streaks, like paint dragged across marble. Under that, something else, subtle ridges along her skin that caught the light in patterns too symmetrical to be scars. Not human, not anything he'd treated before. "Okay," Elias murmured and reached for the scanner. Her hand shot out and caught his wrist. Hard, he felt the pressure in his bones, precise and absolute, not an uncontrolled grab, an intentional restraint. "No," she said. Elias blinked. "No scanner. No records," she corrected. He weighed the moment. He could force it, hit the alarm, call security, make a mess of dignity and fear. Or he could do what he'd always done with wounded strangers, treat what he could see. "All right," he said, and gently eased his wrist free. He didn't yank, he didn't challenge. "Then we do this the old way." Her eyes narrowed like she couldn't tell if he was brave or stupid. Elias cleaned the wound. The antiseptic hissed when it met her blood, reacting, not quite smoking, but close. Adjusted, diluted with sterile saline, tried again. Better. She watched every movement. "So," he said, because silence let pain grow teeth, "what happened?" "An accident," she replied. He said as he applied coag gel. "The kind with blades." "A misunderstanding," she said, tone unchanged. Elias chuckled once. "I've had those, usually with paperwork." Her gaze sharpened. "You are not afraid." Elias pressed sealing foam into place, careful not to touch more skin than necessary. Should I be? Yes, she said simply. The word landed between them like a dropped tool. Elias didn't pretend it didn't. People have told me that before, he said. Usually right before they find out I'm terrible at being scared on command. He bandaged the wound with broad wraps, firm enough to hold pressure, gentle enough not to cut circulation. As he worked, he noticed the way she held herself, not like someone enduring pain, but like someone negotiating with it. When he finished, he sat back on his heels. Okay, that'll keep you from bleeding out, but you need rest and fluids and— Away off this station, she interrupted. Elias frowned. This place doesn't get many visitors, shipping lanes a week out. You could. The corridor lights flickered again. This time the flicker had rhythm, a pulse. Elias recognized it instantly, long-range scan interference. Something powerful had just entered the moon's shadow. The outpost's old speakers crackled. The station AI, named Molly after a long-dead engineer's dog, cleared its synthesized throat. Unidentified vessel, Molly announced. Approaching on silent drift, mass classification military, energy profile non-standard. Elias stood. That's new. The woman rose too quickly for someone freshly bandaged. How many humans are here? 5, Elias said. Me, 2 techs, 1 security, 1 cook who thinks he's security. Her mouth tightened. This vessel is not here for supplies. Elias' stomach sank. It's here for you. Her eyes met his with a calm that felt like a knife set down carefully. Yes. The outpost shuddered as the unknown ship locked into position above them. A shadow passed over the corridor window, a dark shape with no running lights as if it didn't believe in being seen. Elias' comm unit chirped with incoming calls. He ignored it for 1 second longer, studying the woman. Who are you? A pause. Then, with the weight of a confession that could kill him, she said, They call me Vera. The name meant nothing to him until Molly helpfully supplied context in her cheerful tone. Cross-reference, Vera Kale, Molly said. Primary identifier matches highest priority galactic alerts. Title, Empress of the Vihor Dominion. Threat designation, Omega Black. Additional note, approach with extreme caution. Do not engage. Do not negotiate. Elias stared at her. The most feared Empress in the galaxy stood in his corridor with a fresh bandage on her side, looking at him as if she was waiting to see whether his humanity would evaporate. Elias swallowed. His mouth was suddenly dry. You, he began. Yes, Vera said. Outside the hull, the silent ship unfolded like a predatory flower, docking arms extended, not a request. A claim. Elias' comm chirped again, this time a priority override. He tapped it. Elias. Came the voice of Rena, the outpost security officer. We've got a ship trying to force a dock. I'm getting Dominion transponder echoes. You seeing this? Elias looked at Vera. She said nothing. But her eyes told him everything. The Dominion had found her, or someone had. Yeah, Elias said into the comm. I see it. Rena lowered her voice. That ship isn't broadcasting. That's assassination protocol. Elias' throat tightened. Lock internal doors, he said. Get everyone to the core room. And Rena? What? Don't shoot unless you have to. Rena gave a humorless laugh. Elias, I always have to. The comm cut. Vera watched him with an expression like a storm held behind glass. You should surrender me. Elias turned. To who? The silent murder ship. It is not Dominion, she said. If it were Dominion, it would announce itself. It would demand fealty. Dominion does not hide. Then who is it? Elias asked. Vera's fingers flexed once. Someone who wants the galaxy to believe I died here. Elias' brain tried to catch up. Okay, so you're on the run from your own people, her gaze sharpened. I am on the run from those who believe the throne belongs to them more than it belongs to me. Politics, Elias muttered. Always politics. Vera's mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but the ghost of the idea. You bandage an empress, she said, and you speak of politics. Elias started walking. Come on. Where? She asked. Bay, he said, you need to lie down before you tear my work open, and we need a plan. Vera followed, silent as a blade sliding back into a sheath. The outpost's med bay was a cramped room with 2 beds, a wall of supplies, and a screen that displayed the station's ancient vitals like a bored nurse. Elias shoved aside a tray of instruments and gestured at the nearest bed. "Sit." Vera didn't. Elias narrowed his eyes. "Your Majesty," her gaze flashed. Elias held up a hand quickly. "Fine, Vera." "Sit, please." She lowered herself onto the bed with the same careful control. Elias began checking supplies: 2 emergency oxygen masks, 3 med injectors, 1 old plasma cutter, a coil of cable, and a distress beacon that had never been used because nobody wanted to admit they needed saving. He glanced at the monitor. The unknown ship's docking arms were cutting through the outer airlock. "Okay," Elias said, thinking out loud. "If they breach, we can seal the corridor, vent the section. That will kill your people," Vera said. "They're already trying to kill my people," Elias shot back, then forced himself to breathe. "Sorry, I'm not great under siege." Vera's eyes studied him. "You are doing well for someone who should be screaming." Elias gave a tight smile. "I save people, that's my job." "You save strangers," she corrected. "Even those you are taught to fear." Elias looked up from the supplies. "You are feared for a reason, I assume." A silence. When Vera spoke, her voice was quieter, edged with something old. "Fear is useful," she said. "It keeps borders intact, it prevents rebellion, it buys time." "Time for what?" Elias asked. Vera's gaze drifted to the wall as if she could see beyond it. "For survival." Before Elias could press, the station shuddered hard. The lights flickered red. Molly's voice chimed, suddenly less cheerful. "Warning, outer airlock compromised, boarding in progress." Elias' pulse spiked. He grabbed the plasma cutter and tossed it to Vera without thinking. She caught it one-handed. "Can you use that?" he asked. Vera looked at the tool like it offended her. "I have used worse." Footsteps echoed outside, heavy, synchronized, armored, not Dominion soldiers. These steps were too precise, too quiet. Elias shoved the med bay door shut and slapped the manual lock. It would hold for maybe 30 seconds against a determined breach. He yanked open a wall panel to expose a maintenance duct. "We can crawl through here to the reactor spine," he said. "There's a service ladder, might get us to the comm dish." Vera stood. "Your people." "In the core," Elias said. "If we can get a distress call out." "No," Vera said, sudden and sharp. "Do not call for help." Elias stared. "Why not?" "Because whoever answers," Vera said, "will arrive expecting a monster, and the monster will be the only thing they see." Elias' jaw tightened. "Then what do you suggest?" Vera's eyes held his. "Let me go to them." Elias shook his head. "That's suicide." Vera's voice dropped lower. "It is strategy." The door shook as something struck it from the other side, once testing. Elias didn't have time for philosophy. "No," he said, and shoved her toward the duct. "You come with me, we get everyone out." Vera stiffened. For a terrifying moment, Elias thought she might refuse, might snap his arm or take the cutter and carve her own path. Instead, she ducked into the duct without complaint. Elias followed, squeezing through metal ribs and old wiring. The air inside tasted like dust and warm circuitry. Behind them, the med bay door screamed as it was forced. They crawled fast, elbows scraping, knees banging. Elias' heart hammered against his ribs like it wanted out. At a junction, Vera paused. "Left," she said. Elias blinked. "How do you—" "Your station layout is simple," she said. "And I listened to Molly." "Right," Elias muttered. "Of course you did." They emerged into the reactor spine, a narrow vertical shaft lined with humming conduits and heat vents. A ladder ran up the center like a spine inside a spine. Elias climbed first, hauling himself upward, muscles burning. Vera followed with silent ease, one hand gripping the ladder, the other holding the cutter close. Above them, the station shook again. "Elias," came Rena's voice over his comm, strained and low. "They're in. They're moving toward the core, not talking, not asking, just sweeping." Elias' breath hitched. "Hold them," he whispered. "Please." Rena gave a short, harsh exhale. "I'll do what I can." Elias reached the top hatch and shoved it open into the comm room. The space was barely bigger than a closet, filled with ancient signal equipment and a single transmitter dish control panel. He slammed the hatch shut behind Vera and turned to the console. The distress beacon blinked a dull red, offline. "Come on," Elias muttered, tearing open the panel. Wires and dust. "Come on, come on." Vera stood behind him, watching. "Why are they silent?" Elias asked, hands shaking as he rewired the beacon directly to the power bus. "They do not want witnesses," Vera said. "No conversation, no demands, only an outcome." Elias swallowed. "Who sent them?" Vera's eyes narrowed, and for the first time anger cracked her calm. "Those who wear loyalty like armor until it is time to stab." Elias finally got the beacon to flicker. "Okay," he said. "We send a call. We don't name you, we just say, outpost under attack, unknown borders, civilians present." Vera stepped closer. "If help comes," she said softly, "and they find me, they'll have to get through me first," Elias said, surprising himself with how steady his voice sounded. Vera stared as if he'd spoken in a language she didn't know. The beacon's light turned green. Elias hit transmit. A pulse shot out into the void, an old human frequency, a stubborn little scream into the dark. Below, gunfire cracked, sharp, human, echoing through metal corridors. Then a heavier sound, a thud that vibrated the floor. Elias flinched. "Rena," no answer. He forced himself to keep moving. He opened a channel to the core room. "Jax," he said, calling the cook security enthusiast. "Status," a breathless voice answered. "We're locked in. Rena's outside buying time. I can hear them. Elias, what the hell is going on?" Elias glanced at Vera. Vera's face was unreadable. "Just stay calm," Elias said. "Whatever happens, don't open the door." Jax laughed, shaky. "Oh, sure, calm, while invisible murder people play knock-knock." Elias swallowed. "Elias out." He turned to Vera. "We need to," the comm panel beeped. "Incoming signal." Elias' hands moved before his fear could argue. He patched it through. A voice filled the room, crisp, amplified, layered with authority. "Distress beacon received," it said. "This is Coalition Patrol Vessel Ardent Vale. Identify yourselves." Elias' relief hit so hard it almost hurt. "This is Outpost K-17, he said quickly. "We've been boarded by unidentified hostile forces. 5 humans, civilian station, request immediate assistance." A pause, then, "Coalition assets are en route. Estimated intercept 16 minutes. 16 minutes. Elias' stomach sank. 16 minutes was an eternity in a corridor with silent killers. Vera's voice cut through his thoughts. "They will not last 16 minutes. Elias clenched his jaw. "Then we make them." Vera stepped to the console and touched the display lightly as if it might bite. "This coalition vessel," she said. "It will not come alone, others will follow the signal." "Good," Elias said. Vera's gaze lifted to him. "Not good," she corrected, "because when they arrive they will see me, and they will fire before they ask why I bleed." Elias took a slow breath. "Then we tell them." Vera's eyes sharpened. "Tell them what?" "The truth," Elias said. "That you came here wounded, that you didn't hurt anyone, that I am feared," Vera interrupted, voice like ice. "That my name is written on warnings, that entire planets have surrendered at the rumor of my arrival." Elias didn't look away. "And that you didn't kill me when you could have." Silence. Below them, another impact rattled the calm room. Vera's fingers tightened around the plasma cutter. "Your species," she said slowly, "is reckless." "Yeah," Elias said, almost smiling. "We get that a lot." Vera's gaze softened by a fraction, barely visible but real. "In my empire," she said, "a medic who bandaged an enemy without asking would be executed for disloyalty." Elias felt a cold anger flare. "Then your empire's wrong." Vera looked at him as if no one had ever said that to her face and lived. The hatch below them clanged. Something was climbing the ladder. Elias' heart lurched. He grabbed a wrench from the floor and backed toward the hatch, placing himself between Vera and the opening without thinking. His hands shook. His legs wanted to fold. Vera stepped beside him, not behind. The hatch handle turned slowly, experimentally. Elias raised the wrench. The hatch burst upward. A figure in matte black armor surged through, weapon raised, sleek, compact, built for close quarters. Its helmet had no visor, only a blank faceplate that reflected nothing. Elias swung. The wrench connected with the side of the helmet with a ringing clang. The armored figure barely flinched. It backhanded Elias across the chest, sending him slamming into the console. Pain exploded. Air left his lungs in a shocked gasp. The figure raised its weapon. Vera moved. She didn't lunge like a brawler. She flowed like a decision already made. The plasma cutter ignited with a harsh blue arc. In one clean sweep, she sliced through the attacker's weapon. Metal hissed and fell in two smoking halves. The armored figure hesitated, a fraction of surprise. Vera used that fraction to drive her elbow into its throat plate. Hard, precise. It stumbled back toward the hatch. Elias, coughing, grabbed the attacker's shoulder and shoved. The figure fell. It didn't scream. It didn't curse. It simply dropped down the ladder shaft and vanished into darkness with a heavy thud. Elias stared at the open hatch, chest heaving. Vera turned to him. "You fought," she said. Elias coughed a laugh that hurt. "You were about to get shot," seemed rude. Vera's eyes held his. "If you continue doing this," she said softly, "you will die." "Maybe," Elias wheezed, "but not today." A sound echoed up the shaft, more climbing, more than one. Vera's gaze went distant, calculating. "They will keep coming," she said. "They are not here to win, they are here to ensure an ending." Elias pushed himself upright, pain sparking. "Then we change the ending." Vera looked at him as if he'd just rewritten a law of physics. Below, the outpost shook again, closer now, like the attackers were cutting through barriers. Elias leaned into the comm panel, breath ragged. "Coalition patrol," he said, forcing calm into his voice. "We have multiple hostiles aboard. They appear trained, silent, no identification." The Coalition voice responded tighter now. "Understood, maintain position, assistance inbound." Elias swallowed. "There's something else." Vera stiffened. Elias met her eyes. "There's a high-value individual here," he said into the comm. "Injured, non-hostile to us." A pause. "Specify." Elias closed his eyes for half a second. Then he said the name that had filled half the galaxy with nightmares. "Vera Kale," he said. "The Empress." The comm line went so silent Elias could hear his own blood. When the Coalition voice returned, it was different, carefully controlled, like someone speaking over a loaded weapon. "Outpost K-17, the voice said. "Repeat." Elias opened his eyes. "She's here," he said. "And before you do what your protocols tell you, know this. She walked in bleeding and let me treat her. She could have killed us. She didn't. The hostiles on board, they're not Dominion. They're here to assassinate her, and they'll kill us to do it." Another long pause, then, "We are adjusting approach," the Coalition voice said. "Hold." Elias exhaled shakily. "That's something." Vera stepped closer, voice low. "You risked your life with words." "Yeah," Elias said. "Humans do that too." Vera looked at the open hatch, then back at Elias. The corridor below rang with metallic impacts, doors forced, locks shattered, her jaw tightened. "I have ruled by fear," she said, as if the confession scraped her throat. "Because fear is efficient." Elias didn't interrupt. Vera's eyes returned to him. "But your mercy," she said, "is disruptive." Elias gave a breathless smile. "That might be the nicest thing anyone said to me." For the first time, Vera smiled, small, sharp, real. "Do not grow proud," she warned. "Too late," Elias whispered. The hatch below clanged again, multiple sets of hands now. The killers were coming. Elias gripped the wrench until his knuckles ached. "Okay," he said, voice trembling but determined. "We hold this room. We hold for 16 minutes. Vera lifted the plasma cutter. "No," she said. "We hold for as long as it takes." And when the first armored head rose through the hatch, Elias didn't see a monster beside him. He saw a wounded woman with a fresh bandage standing her ground. He swung his wrench. Vera's cutter sang. Below them, the outpost screamed and shook and refused to become a grave. Outside in the dark, the Coalition ship broke protocol and burned hard toward the station, not because an alert told them to, but because a human medic had said something impossible. The most feared Empress didn't kill me. And in the narrow, calm room of Outpost K-17, mercy became the loudest weapon in space. They survived the boarding. The Coalition arrived. The galaxy watched the footage on repeat. But the real shock came 2 days later, when a Dominion fleet emerged from warp above the same dead moon, not to conquer it, not to punish it, but to ask a single human medic one question. What did you do to our Empress?